What up? I'm Chet Popelka. This is the Braves TomaBlog. So what I'm doing right now is setting up a primer for the Braves trade season, which will go on throughout the month of July. Going through the tradable players, who is likely to be traded, what the Braves are likely to get for them, and how likely they are in order to get those things. First, I want to touch on sort of the Braves trade position. In the past, over the past really 3 years, the Braves have been sellers. They're as sellers as sellers really get. This year, that's not necessarily the case. The Braves are in second place, and the other three teams below them have announced that they're going to be sellers. So the Braves are the only somewhat possible threat to the Washington Nationals, who are an imperfect team. So the Braves are in a position where they have players that they could move, but if they didn't want to move them, it wouldn't be absurd. Upon that, I don't think seller is ever a great way to describe what the Braves do at the trade deadline. The Braves are always very smart and always have a good sense of what they can get. The Braves are not a team that says, I need to get someone for this guy. It's just not what they do. First of all, the Braves have no hesitancy to hold on to someone past the trade deadline and move them later like they did with Jeff Francoeur and Eric Ibar last year. I think this is one of those times where you should be really happy that Coppolella and Hart are running the show in Atlanta, because they're not sellers, quote unquote, because the Braves always get the better end of the deal. That's just the way that it's been every single time, except for really the Hector Olivera trade. So even if they are moving a veteran for a prospect, that's not necessarily them selling. Do you remember last year when we traded that guy whose name I can't even remember for Travis Demerit? It's not really the Braves selling, that's them getting a better end of the deal. Something I would tell you before the trade season starts is don't get your hopes set too high on moving veterans like Markakis, Brandon Phillips, Matt Kemp, Matt Adams. One, it would make the team a lot worse. These are really vital linchpins in our lineup that it would really hurt the Major League product to move. And second, what do you want for these guys? The Braves already have far and away the best farm system in Major League Baseball. We don't need anything. The Braves have made a million trades ever since they started this rebuild for a lot of prospects. Do you remember the 15 trades they made in between 2014 and 2015? And who was the best guy that they got? It's probably Fulton-Evich. There's some good players that we've gotten, but we've also gotten a lot of guys like Matt Wisler, Aaron Blair, Terrell Jenkins, Jace Peterson, Chris Ellis. I'm just saying that you don't change your organization by trading veterans. You can get some nice pieces, but they're going to be complementary. And that's not to mention that guys like Nick Markakis, Matt Kemp, and Matt Adams are all under contract and can be contributors next year. So a list of untouchable guys that the Braves are not going to trade is Freddie Freeman, Ender Inciarte, Dansby Swanson, Sean Newcomb, any young bullpen pieces, and any major prospects like Ozzie Albies, Kevin Maitan, Colby Allard, Mike Soroka, Luis Gohara, guys like that. They're not going to get moved. So now I'm going to go through the most likely guys to get traded. Jim Johnson. Jim Johnson, the Braves should absolutely be dangling in front of other teams. He's under contract through this year and next year, but he's pretty old. He's not in our long-term plans. He is our official closer right now, and that makes him valuable. That said, he's not great. I think he's pretty replaceable. I think you could have a guy like Vizcaino, a guy like Jose Ramirez replace him, and they could do a pretty good job. You get good experience for your younger guys. And as always, bullpen pieces come at a premium price. So there's lots of teams this year that need bullpen pieces. Bullpen pieces are going to be expensive for everyone. So Jim Johnson, you could get definitely a much better return on him than the value you would get as him as your closer. So Jim Johnson, they should be calling teams saying, we'll give you Jim Johnson for this. And they can even have some leeway on that. But I think even Washington would be willing to do work inside the division just to improve their bullpen. And I don't think it's at all absurd to say that you could get two good prospects, one in the top 100 for Jim Johnson. Jaime Garcia. So Jaime Garcia is in the last year of his contract. You're not going to re-sign him after next year. And there's also no draft pick compensation because you can't give him a qualifying offer. So it really does make a lot of sense to dangle him, see what you can get for him. He's a good pitcher. He's not great, but again, lots of teams are in a lot of need for starting pitching. Now, the market is pretty deep on starting pitching. You got guys like Jose Quintana, Johnny Cueto, Sonny Gray, Jason Vargas. Garcia is not as good as those guys. Garcia makes a lot of sense for a team that doesn't want to break the bank but still wants starting pitching help. So that suits teams like the Yankees, like the Dodgers, like the Rockies, like the Diamondbacks, teams that don't want to hurt their chances for the future, but still definitely want to deepen the rotation this year. And I think with Garcia, you could expect that you could get a top 100 prospect for him, and likely, you know, maybe a high-end pitcher that doesn't have great command yet or something like that. Brandon Phillips. So like Jaime Garcia, he's in his last year of his contract. You can't give him a qualifying offer. Don't be shocked if the Braves don't trade him. It's not like Ozzie Albies is lighting it up at AAA, forcing you to give him a spot on the Major League roster. So if we wanted to keep Brandon Phillips through the end of the year, it wouldn't be the end of the world. But you're not going to get any value for him besides the production that he gives you this year or a trade package, so it's definitely worth exploring the trade packages. Here's the thing about it. Does anyone really need a second baseman? The only contenders I really see as needing a second baseman, I think he would be an improvement for Milwaukee, and maybe the Angels fancy themselves as wildcard contenders. I think it would be stupid for them to move the few prospects that they have for Brandon Phillips, but if they did, you know, okay. So again, it's definitely worth seeing what you can get for Brandon Phillips, but you might not be able to get much for him, and in that case, you might as well just keep him. Now I'm going to go through players to be calling other teams about. These are players that you might not be getting a lot of calls for, but you should be the one making the call, seeing if you can get anything for them. First one is R.A. Dickey. He sort of teeters that line in between the two of them. Here's the thing. There's profit to be made on R.A. Dickey. What he is pretty clear. He's the same thing for you that he would be for a contender, is he's an innings-eating rotation deepener. And he's doing the job that you asked him to do. He has a team option for next year, so you could potentially get 2 years out of him if you're, or another year if you're another team. So a team like Houston, a team like New York, a team like Baltimore would really be benefited by having the rotation deepened a little bit, and there's genuine value to R.A. Dickey for that. Bartolo Colon, I don't even want to talk about him. We messed up. I don't know why Atlanta isn't treating him the way the Houston Texans treated Brock Osweiler. Like, you're the biggest mistake. It was our fault. We're sorry to ourselves. Just please leave. I don't want to talk about it. And Kurt Suzuki. I go back and forth on players like this because on the one hand, he's a very good backup catcher and he's doing a very good job for himself right now. And it does make your team less good in the immediate. So if you're going to make yourself competitive with Washington, you keep him. You're not going to get anything great for him. What you get for him is essentially trade capital for the future. So, you know, the guys that we got for Juan Uribe, the guys that we got for Kelly Johnson when we traded them. You know, it's sort of like we got Chris Ellis in the Andrelton Simmons trade, and then we use him as capital for the Jaime Garcia trade. We're not going to get any future starters or anything like that for Kurt Suzuki. You just deepen your farm system because of him. Another thing that you could potentially get for him is maybe a third-round draft pick or something like that. Maybe some extra pool money for the international pool. I don't know. Be creative. And the next section is players that you take calls on, but you force your trade partner to overpay for. Matt Kemp, you guys already know, I've talked about it a good bit already. I see nothing in his production that's unsustainable. He's not old. I see him as our left fielder for the next 2 years unless you get an offer that you can't refuse for him. Nick Markakis, he's a good player, he's a good fielder, he's not overpaid, he offers our lineup a lot of balance, so there's no reason to move him. He's also a team leader that doesn't get credit for it. You know, so I see no reason that you have to move him. If you want him as your right fielder next year, I have no problem with that. If a team wants him, they can have him. But they gotta make us want to trade him. And Matt Adams. I don't understand the need to move Matt Adams. First of all, we have money if we want to pay him in arbitration. If Kyle Schwarber can play left field on a team that gets to the NLCS, I don't see why Matt Adams can't play in our outfield, or we can have Freddie Freeman play somewhere else. I don't see why there's need to move Matt Adams, and he makes your team a lot better. If you have him on the bench, it suddenly makes our bench one of the better ones in baseball, so I see no need to move Matt Adams. But if a team really wants him, they can absolutely have him. They just, like Markakis and like Kemp, they need to motivate us to move him. Jason Motte. Jason Motte's been a stabilizing factor in our bullpen. Our bullpen's been a good deal better since he got here, along with Sam Freeman. I'm happy to move him to the highest bidder, so long as the highest bidder is willing to give me a fair trade package for him. But unless someone wants to give us a Travis Demeritte type prospect, I have no problem making him the real veteran of the bullpen. You can put him in the closer role if you want to. He's done it before. And I have no problem with giving him the same 2-year contract that we gave Jim Johnson. So those are the guys. Really hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know how you feel about any of these trade possibilities, anything that you're looking for. Maybe if there's a prospect that you're hoping that the Braves can get for someone. But yeah, let me know how you're feeling. Again, I'm Chuck Pelga. This is the Braves TomaBlog YouTube channel. We talk about the Braves, we talk about baseball in general. I really hope you enjoyed, and go Braves.